I actually grew up in Owatonna. I was a 1986 grad from Owatonna. I went off to St. John's, ended up running into an Owatonna gal, and we were married. And then 1997, we moved back to Owatonna. My dad had a business here. We were going to have children. Her parents are here. My parents were here. So we thought we should come back and raise our family with our parents. So that's what brought me back to Owatonna in 1997. Part of it, we came back was, it has a good school system and good community and a little more progressive and forward thinking, has some great businesses here. So that's some of the reasons that brought me back. And I thought it was a pretty good cross section of our community. I was on it, I think, because I was a graduate of Owatonna, but also a financial advisor and sometimes a little skeptical of those things. But there were farmers, there were some other financial advisors, bankers, chamber members, parents, a fair amount of parents on the committee. So it was I think there were 30 people that were on the initial committee. So the 2015 really started with, here are some of the major issues that we need to address. And one of them really was safety in the schools. And with some of the mass shootings, like that didn't happen in 1986. We didn't think about that. But that was a concern in the 80s, like having a lot of doors at the high school to sneak in and out was a good thing. But it's not so much anymore. And then also came out some of the unfunded maintenance and some of the things that needed to be updated in the schools, and not just at the high school, but those other, those schools are older than me, and nearly 50 years old at the time of the task force. Also, which was interesting, combining the 6th grade with the junior high and creating a middle school, and then redoing some of the schools and updating some of the classrooms so they were a little bit more 21st century learning came out of that as we took tours of the schools. And then finally, the biggest thing was what do we do about the high school? And the high school became a bigger issue than a 2-hour meeting or a part of a meeting of really what to do with that. So there was a lot of discussion on the high school, building a football field, off campus, not doing that, doing some of the projects, just doing the security, but it became a much bigger issue than we could solve in a couple of meetings. So yeah, so the grade school piece, that's what it really narrowed down to after. And there were some good exercises in going through the pros and cons and population, or kind of who would be at the school, how big the classrooms would be. But it's how do we use these classrooms? And they're used differently today than they were 30 years ago, and that was part of it. But the security really was the main one in the gym space. My kids played basketball, and there were some nights you didn't get home until 10 o'clock because there just isn't any gym space. So a couple of gyms were added, in that process too. So from the first to the 2015 task force, with all the different issues or topics that we talked about, the priority was the school safety was a priority, especially at the elementary schools, adding some gym space and creating and adding the 6th grade to the middle school. And part of it came out of it just updating the schools and specifically the middle school to have 21st century learning spaces that were more collaborative, had multiple uses, more technology. You could bring 2 or 3 classrooms together, had desks you could move around, was part of that conversation.